Do you know how you can describe Greek mythology in one sentence? Zeus couldn't keep his genitals in his pants. But our game is a bit more than that. Age of Mythology was very popular when it first came out in 2002. 12 years later they have remastered it as extended edition, and in 2016 we even got a controversial DLC. I personally think that Age of Mythology belongs to top 10 RTS of all time, and I really enjoyed playing it. But let's get into the details. Overall visuals have been improved. Devs have added global lighting, better water reflections, day-night cycle, and all of this looks really amazing. It feels fresh actually, but if we will look at units and building models itself, they seems rather archaic, antique even. I'm not even sure if they have scaled them to a better resolution. Another unpleasant surprise is that the most of the Chinese units are basically a reskin of the Greek ones. And even more stranger thing is the meteor glitch effect. I don't know the nature of this artifact, but it's kinda strange. I don't know how developers could mess this up. Either it's the texture, either it's the effect, I don't know. Despite the age, we have amazing attention to the details. Bodies slowly turning into the skeletons and only then disappear, trees fall down and lying on the ground, different light sources and weather effects, etc, etc, etc. I could describe visual representation of the game in one word: enjoying. Somehow I feel calm when I play this game. Obviously each race has its unique look for its units and buildings, although I think that Atlanteans looks more swag in comparison to other nations. Units are more detailed, has more armor elements, and in general looks more cool. Minimap is a little tricky. You really should concentrate to understand a thing. Yes, it has a few modes of landscapes, but they really don't make a difference. All colors and icons merges in one big mess. Same with the font on the screen. But overall I've enjoyed the visuals. A few minor downsides couldn't ruin the picture of a really atmospheric game. Here things gets even more interesting. You see all units voiced in its nation language.
Up.
This is a huge plus for the game, and again for its atmosphere. Each monster voiced in its own way. Different hits got its sounds, screams, you've got the idea. In terms of a sound design, the game couldn't get any better. But there are also a few negative moments. A few units got the same voice lines. Not a big deal actually, but in some time you will notice this more often. What's really got me is the voice acting. Most of the characters sounds good, and in other ones, well, just listen for yourself.
Atlantis still has enemies, and you are still the one who will face them.
Any who threaten my home or my family will soon have a place in my dreams.
These are enemies unlike the others, Arkantos. Do not let your guard down. Dark times are coming, and you are needed. Arkantos, awaken.
Admiral, sir.
Yes?
We've sighted land on the horizon. We should reach Atlantis soon.
Excellent. It will be good to see my son Castor again.
Just lifeless robot reading its text. Not a good job right there. And what's about the music? Some of the tracks are kinda generic, but mostly it's a really memorable compositions that you could even play as your background for your studying or work.
Herr Joes.
Yuji, Schloss, Schwest.
Bureg. Yuji. Herr Joes. Yuji. Bureg.
So in general, sound is the same as the visuals. Got a few downsides, but not a crucial ones. Mostly it's very good. Gameplay is classical as it gets. Train villagers, gather resources, get more advanced technologies throughout the ages, and acquire army. Simple as that. Combat itself more like rock, paper, scissors game. Spearmen beats cavalry, cavalry destroy archers, that kind of stuff. All of this you would have seen in Age of Empires. But here we have mythological units as well. Different cyclops, ancient heroes, huge monsters, and even the titans. To use all of this you need to gather favor, the fourth resource here. Each race gathers it in its own way. Greeks building temples, Norse getting it in the fights, etc. Another difference is the superpower. Each time you will move to a new age, you will have to choose one of two minor gods. Each of them has its own combination of units, upgrades and powers. They are located located at the top of the screen, but most of them will disappear after single use. The later the age, the better the power. For example, we have Devastating Tornado. Each race has 3 greater gods and a few lesser ones. You could choose them in a game selection menu. Before we move to the nations, I would like to talk about the AI. And it's bad.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
Really bad. Firstly, any RTS game relies on a good pathfinding from your units, and we have a problem here. Your troops really can't complete your commands successfully. They stuck all the time, can't attack an enemy if you have commanded aerial attack, can't prioritize their targets. In one word, it's terrible. If you want to be a successful player in Age of Mythology, you should babysit your units. As for the player's AI, it's even worse here. In my opinion, bots are either way too aggressive, either doing nothing. They have different behaviors that you could choose from, and it's make things even more complicated. Harder bots obviously cheating, and your allies usually weaker than their opponents. When I was playing this game as a kid, bots couldn't play island maps because they just couldn't use the transport ships and land on your territory. Now they've patched it, and at least AI could do this. But still, gameplay with the bots not that interesting, and you should really learn how to rush your army and attack all the time. Bots in the Age of Empires 3 is really better in my opinion. And finally, time to talk about the races. We have Greeks, Egyptians, Norsemen, Atlanteans and Chinese. Greeks is your typical how to play civilization. Reasonably balanced and easy to play with. They have variety of myth units, all types of humans, although have a lack of healing possibilities. One hero, single use power, and they will regenerate near the temple, if you will acquire needed upgrade from a minor god. Egyptians is your defensive option. They have obelisks to watch the territory, and they have pharaoh that can boost your buildings. Though human units are more bland in comparison to Greeks, but have more powerful cavalry. In terms of mythical troops, they have less tanks and more, let's say, basic units to choose from. Their economics based on gold mostly, and they get their favor from the monuments. Norsemen is your attack option. They get favor from the battle, got mobile gather wagons, and their warriors could build. Basically, you could place your camp near the enemy's base. Also, they've got a lot of strong mythical units. Powerful but hard to play with race. Atlanteans is the most interesting race in my opinion. They have the most detailed units, nice variety of them. Almost any soldier could be promoted to a hero, a more powerful version of itself. Probably the most useful mythical units as well, such as automatons that could repair each other, and overall Atlanteans just strong and interesting race to play with. And here goes Chinese. As I said before, most of their units just reskin of the previous ones. Basically, it's your Greeks 2 nation with less variety. There are only a few new units. For example, Horse Archer, Siege Rocket Shooter and a few dragons. I can't say that this race is poorly done. Visually I really do like them. Also, they could build gardens to get favor and resources, and they have probably the best powers among all races. They could use them more than once too. What else Chinese DLC has to offer? A few new maps in Skirmish, larger map size, and the new campaign that I will talk about a bit later. In general, it's not that bad as users on Steam say, but not that good either. A few words about the multiplayer. Usually there are a few users online, but it's really just easier to play with your friends. Connection system is similar to the one in the first Dawn of War, so yeah, it's pretty old. By the way, try to use local cheat codes. They meant to be used. How's about Canadian beer that flies and shoots laser from his eyes? Let's talk about the campaigns now, and trust me, there's a lot to talk about. I will start with the main one, the Fall of the Trident. It's the campaign from the main game, and traditionally it teaches us how to play in main factions, Greeks, Egyptians and Norse. Also prepare to go for a walk, cause you will be doing this a lot. As a kid I finished like 3/4 of this campaign maybe, but before I replayed it again I barely remembered a thing. And actually I am impressed, because now I see that Titan Quest almost completely copied its story from Age of Mythology. Our main hero is Arkantos, an Atlantean. He didn't want to join Greeks in their war against Troy, but in his dream Athena warned him that dark times is coming and the city will be attacked by the bandits that will steal Poseidon's trident. Arkantos started a chase and eventually joined Greeks. We will meet famous Ajax and Odysseus, local memes generators.
Are you ready for the siege? We could use your advice in planning our attack.
As the commander here, I have already taken care of the plans, Odysseus. You and Arkantos will take your armies and start the siege of the gates.
That's a fine start. What about the other armies?
Ajax and I will keep our men in reserve. When you get through, Ajax will rush his men in to clear out the Trojan defenders. Then I will enter and rescue Helen.
In Atlantis, a defeated general surrenders his horse when beaten.
A horse, yes. A great wooden horse.
I don't understand. Will it fight?
And of course we will build the Trojan horse and will end this war. Then Arkantos will sail to Iaclos, where we will meet Chiron that was imprisoned by Gargarensis, Jesus, who has attacked Atlantis before. Thus we will find out that our Cyclops wants to open one of the gates of the underworld and free the Titans. In the end we would also find out that Poseidon was the main villain and wanted to take Zeus's place among the Olympian gods. And as I told before, Titan Quest took this story and copied it almost completely. Not am I really disappointed, I love both of these games, but it was really interesting to find this out. In the meantime we have entered Erebor and defeated the bandits. Long story short, we will chase Gargarensis to the Egypt, where we will revive fallen Osiris, and then we will go to Northlands, where we will fight against Loki. Whose else should we fight there? Yeah. Anyway, there we will restore Thor's hammer and will seal second gates of the underworld. In the process Ajax will execute Gargarensis. Then Arkantos sails back to Atlantis, and then it turns out that Cyclops hasn't been killed. What a surprise. Anyways, we will have to complete 2 last missions, seal the last 3rd gates to the underworld, but unfortunately city collapsed into the ocean alongside with Arkantos.
Atlantis. The entire city is lost.
Only the buildings. We rescued the people.
But for his heroic deeds, Athena turned him into a demigod. Probably the longest campaign I've ever played in an RTS game. Although it has a lot of interesting missions. Convoy tasks, a chapter where you should lure your enemies into the trap. We even got a clear reference to Jason and the Argonauts, mission where your heroes being turned into the pigs, and a lot more. If you are new to the game or to RTS genre in general, I highly recommend to complete this campaign. It's not that hard, but it has interesting moments and it will show you the basics of the Age of Mythology. On the other hand, it takes enormous time to complete it, even on the lesser difficulties. There are a lot of defense missions where you should play like for 20-30 minutes straight. I'm more scrimmage guy, but really glad to finish the story and see these amazing cutscenes. They gave me a lot of positivity actually. They made with a lot of attention to the details and have custom animations, and overall better even than ones in the 3rd Warcraft. In my opinion, it would have been way cooler if they showed more direct interaction with gods, such as, I don't know, Zeus, but it's a new models, voice lines, so developers decided that they shouldn't do this. Moving next to the Golden Gift campaign. We will play as the 2 dwarves from the first story, and they were tricked by the Loki that took their golden boar. Really bland and boring campaign, don't even know why developers created it. Absolutely skippable. Moving next, the new Atlantis is actually a continuation of the original campaign, and we play as Atlanteans of course, and son of Arkantos, Castor. In the end of the first story, Atlanteans left with the Greeks, but somehow now have appeared in Northlands. Anyways, Titans still want to escape from Tartarus, and they have tricked Atlanteans into helping them. Thus we start a war with our old pals, Greeks, Egyptians and Norsemen. When we nearly massacred everyone, Arkantos appeared and saved the day. And of course, for the more drama, he couldn't appear earlier. then the minor titans have escaped and we will fight them in a long and actually boring series of missions before we play the final one, where the good Titan Gaia will seal the gates of the Tartarus. In this campaign we are being introduced to a new faction and basically will play with the new features. For example, in one mission we should replace Odin's temples with Titan ones. This campaign actually not harder than the original one, but rather more annoying. We are being attacked more often and usually have a few limitations. Limited resources, no base, etc. Cutscenes are fine actually, but overall I think that this campaign is boring. And as for the Chinese, in my opinion, users on Steam a bit overreacted. Yes, it's not that fabulous, but at least it's better than the Golden Gift. I'd say it's on the same level as the Titans one. In most of the missions we just should hold the point for some amount of time or just quickly destroy the enemy. But also we have a few really cool missions. For example, in one chapter we will lead huge army versus another one. As Sun Tzu once said, "Fuck out of here, boy, get that weak shit out of here." Plot is pretty simple. We should restore yin and yang, thus we should find a few bandits, pass through the underworld and call our Titan. Characters in this campaign is kinda bland and you will forget about them once you will complete it. But once again, I've seen the same level of execution in Golden Gift campaign, so I'm not that disappointed as the most of the players would tell. Also, I do like level design and overall aesthetic of China campaign, probably the best one among all 4 stories. I personally not a big fan of campaigns in RTS games. I really enjoyed one in the World of Conflict, but mostly they are straight bad. For example, Warcraft 3 that I have mentioned earlier. Story is good, but most of the missions are really boring and cutscenes just filled with default animations. Anyways, what the final conclusion? I really like Age of Mythology. As I said before, it's one of the best RTS games of all times. Extended version works smooth on a new system and I haven't encountered any problems during my playthrough. Base game is really enjoyable and you will spend a lot of good time with it. As for the Chinese DLC, it's not must-have. It could give you a few new maps, a new size and a new nation that not that unique. Also, you will have a mediocre campaign. Totally not worth buying for a full price. But if you like Age of Mythology and will play for like 20-30 hours plus, then wait for a discount and go for it.